Hi, I'm Jeff McClain, a wealth advisor with Wells Fargo Private Bank. As the presenting sponsor for today's event, we're grateful for the opportunity to show our commitment to the Silicon Slopes community where we spend so much of our time. Reach out and connect to me on LinkedIn. Let's start a conversation about how we can help advise you and your family.
All right, welcome to the Silicon Slopes Breakfast. Appreciate you all being here and tuning in. We are joined by Josh Weiner, who's the CEO of Solutionreach. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me, Garrett.
Oh, you bet. It's a beautiful September day.
Just a little smoke in the air. No big deal.
Yeah, a little campfire. Did you walk over here? Or?
No. Well, I just, hey, at least I'm not putting any gas emissions in the air. I'm not contributing to that. So.
Yeah. All right, so for those that don't know, why don't you just give a quick primer of what Solutionreach is and how the company's evolved over the years?
Yeah, I'd love to do that. So Solutionreach is a Lehigh company, born and bred. We were founded in the year 2000 by an amazing innovator, entrepreneur, mentor of mine, Jim Higgins. We have grown and evolved since then. Our purpose in a nutshell is to transform healthcare through communication and to make it accessible, to make it personal, and to make it modern. And our view is that far too much emphasis on improving care goes into the things that we know to improve care, such as medicine, science, devices. All of those things matter. They matter a great deal. But we believe that conversation and that communication between that provider and the patient, or between providers and providers, that's gone missing from an innovation perspective, and that it fundamentally does have a transformative capability in healthcare, and that it's been underappreciated. And Jim had that vision when he founded the business back in 2000. And our experience is that this year people are waking up to what Jim was talking about back then, and it's been a real wake-up call that, hey, if we can't get patients in, and if it's tough to see them in person, we got to have a good way to communicate with them, and that's exactly what our technology tools do.
Yeah, and it's evolved a lot from a text message to all the products and offerings.
But hey, texting's as relevant in our view as it ever has been. But yeah, it all started out with a text message, but that's right.
Yeah, so texting on a smartphone, I guess, versus a Nokia where you had to type three times.
How many times you had to punch the buttons and get.
Are you going to your appointment?
Yeah.
Yes.
Crap! I didn't hit it enough times. Yeah, exactly.
Well, cool. That's 20 years. Very cool. And timing in life is everything, as they say. And you've got some interesting timing as the CEO. When did you take that role?
So I started in January of 2020. Thinking, hey, nice round number. We'll all remember that for the future. Didn't know what 2020 would have in store for us, as I'm sure many of us didn't, rolling into this year. But yeah, I was fortunate enough to be given that opportunity, having worked alongside Jim as an investor first, and then as an operator, as the chief operating officer of the business for a few years, and ultimately got the ability to run the business this year.
Yeah. And Jim was probably saying no give-backs, like in March or April. Well, cool. So a little sidebar there, because I'm interested, and I think the audience would be as well. What's the selection process like for a CEO of a company your size, speaking from what you went through, but then also the other side of the table where you lived a long time as a private equity guy?
Yeah, selecting a new CEO is a really delicate process in any situation. And I would argue that selection process more often is unique to that situation than having any sort of formula about it. In my case, I sat on the board before I joined the company. I maintained very close relationships, and then, worked for the company and reported to the board and worked with the board after I became the chief operating officer. And most importantly, worked side by side with Jim, the founder and CEO. And so the two of us worked with the board to put together a thoughtful succession plan for this year. And there was not sort of a formal national search selection process, but what there was buy-in and alignment from the beginning. I've been involved on the private equity side with situations that maybe were a bit more process-driven, where you get to a point where either you see that the CEO is not performing and you need to bring in a fresh leader to bring that company to where it needs to go. And that's a different situation where you would be candid with the CEO on what needs to happen. But in parallel, as a board, in a private equity control ownership situation, you would be running a national or in some cases an international search for the right leader. You would hire a search firm. That search firm would search high and low. They would involve the whole board in the process. And it can take quite a while. It's a significant undertaking. Not only is the search time a significant undertaking, but as an investor, you're saying, hey, I'm going to put someone new in there. They're going to have to learn the business. They're going to have to probably bring in a bunch of senior leaders to help them bring that fresh leadership perspective and method to the business. And so what does that do? That extends my hold time. So what I thought maybe going in it was a 3 or a 4 or a 5 year hold time, whatever that was, I'm adding 2 or 3 years to that. The minute that I say, I need to bring a new CEO in here. So what you're seeing in the private equity space now is that firms are getting more and more scientific about bringing in new leadership on day one, so that they're not waiting that extra, they're not kind of resetting the clock on their hold time. That wasn't reflective of our experience at Solutionreach, where it was kind of a founder-driven and board-led experience for us.
Yeah. It's probably a little bit harder now than it used to be as the CEO, because I think the expectations need to be met sooner, similar like college football coaches, right? Like on day one, these poor guys are like, how long's he got before he turns it around? And you're like, I haven't even unpacked my desk yet.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think that those expectations are higher?
Money, and there's a lot at stake, right?
Yeah.
You've got the stakeholders, and if you screw up a big college football program similar to a company, that could be 7 or 8 years of pain.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. So I mean, that's what I've kind of seen over the course of my career to date is how much that leadership matters, and how big of a differentiator is that in driving the potential upside for your company.
Yeah, absolutely. So as 2020 goes, you guys are in a pretty good spot with telemedicine.
That's right.
And patient communication. So I had you on the podcast 4 or 5 months ago, and right in the thick of it for the most part. You were month 3 into your campaign as the CEO. What have you guys done? Your pivots, your big pivots, your mini pivots to be positioned for a good 2020 and into the future?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Garrett. And what we talked about, I believe it was April when we last got together, was my agenda coming in to the role was, I know that I've been a leader at the organization, but part of me needs to act like this is my very first day at Solutionreach. And so in February, actually dating back in middle of January, I kicked this off. I met with every single team member at our company in small groups of 12. We actually completed those meetings right before we had to go virtual. So I sat down, breakfast like this format, or lunch, and met with everybody. And the focus there was an agenda of resetting culture through understanding what makes us special, what do we want to preserve, what's holding us back, what are we holding on to that we need to get rid of if we're going to get to the next level. So I came in with this culture reset and listening agenda, and that played out well. I think we got a lot of trust and a lot of momentum just out of the gates. So enter COVID, you sort of get a crisis that you're dealing with it as a team, and that brought us a bit closer together. And of course, a lot of the things that we do are helping our healthcare providers deal with this difficult situation that they're put in right now. But the next step in the agenda is strategy. So I was very careful not to come in and say, here's what we need to do strategically in the business, because you're not going to care unless you trust me or you trust your team around you. So that was the next step, is to talk about strategically, okay, we say we're going to transform healthcare. We say it needs to be accessible, it needs to be modern, it needs to be personal. But what does that mean? How exactly are we going to do that across our tech platforms? How are we going to do it from a go-to-market perspective? And so we started laying out the strategic framework. And that's what the focus has been really since we've gotten together, because I had just completed kind of that initial set of culture discussions, which we've persisted since then. That's not going away. But on top of that, we've started to build in the strategy map that we call it. And then on top of that, it's, all right, who as individual leaders within our organization, which team members are going to drive that success? You get into a people discussion and a leadership discussion.
All right. Very cool. Yeah, it was interesting to hear that everyone at the company had some time with you and their voices were being heard, and there could be a wiping of the whiteboard.
And we still do that. So every Thursday morning at 8:30, we call it Voice of SR, Voice of Solutionreach. And still every Thursday morning, we get together in a Zoom room, and we talk about it's an open forum, but we talk about improving our culture. So we've just persisted that meeting series to the point where the idea is I meet with every team member 2 times per year.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. And so, you guys have been busy, but one of the things that I liked that I've seen you guys do is win back 2020.
Yep.
Go into some detail on that.
Well, look, 2020 threw us a bunch of crap. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Was crap thrown at you,
fun.
Garrett?
Yes, not very fun.
So we all agree. We decided at the turning point, July 1, whatever, we got to the middle of the year, and we said, hey, we could either get controlled by 2020, or we could control 2020. We could say, no, we're the ones that are going to define what we do this year, how we embrace this new reality that we're in, how we build on it, not just culturally, not just strategically, but from a mindset perspective. And so that's where we kind of declared take 2 on the year, and this is going to be our year, and we've gotten the team to rally behind that.
Yeah. And one of the many challenges that you probably weren't expecting to have was managing virtually. How's that gone for you since we last chatted?
That's gone fine. I attribute that to all of our team members who've just stepped up and said, look, we're not going back. We've kind of banned informally, I don't think there's any punishment for this, but we've informally banned this notion of going back to normal. What did it even mean, go back? I'm not a go back guy. I hope nobody at Solutionreach is a go back team member. We're a go forward group of people, so we're not going back to normal. Normal doesn't even matter, doesn't mean anything to me. So virtual is just, okay, so that's our new reality. We're in that. We've got some team members who come into the office every now and then, which is good because we've found that some of our team members, it really can be tough to perform at that high level in an isolated virtual environment. So on a case-by-case basis, we've got plenty of office space. We can do that in a safe manner. But by and large, we are a virtual organization. We also went into this having a lot of teammates who were not in Utah. The vast majority of our team is here, but we've got team members around the world. And it was just something that we had to do as a business anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys have a beautiful office. I'm glad some people are using it at least.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, cool. So you've got an interesting background with business consulting with McKinsey, and then on the private equity side with Summit Partners. And Summit Partners is growth capital. Once the company kind of has a product market fit, you guys goose it with knowledge and money and connections and all of that. Your formative years there and at McKinsey, how does that affect how you run Solutionreach now?
Yeah, I mean, I just feel sorry for all of my teammates who have to deal with me bringing those experiences to bear. I mean, look, they shaped me in fundamental ways. And so at McKinsey, you're tasked with coming in to work largely with Fortune 500 leaders of the largest, most influential organizations in the world and solve a tough problem using a fact base to do it. And so, McKinsey's style is to hire young, bright folks. I don't know how I slipped through the cracks, but it's not like they're requiring any sort of specific domain expertise. You come in and you're moldable and you learn how to solve tough problems with a group of people and you work around the clock in a little conference room for months on end, wherever you are around the world, and you get after it, and you solve those tough problems. And we were talking about this a little bit before, Garrett, but one of the constraints that was placed on us as teams at McKinsey was you got to build your fact set so that when you go in and present to the CEO of that organization, that you're driving that change. But the constraint is you basically can't say, this leader sucks. They're never going to be able to execute on that. And I was 23 years old, so I probably didn't even know what leadership was. But that was a big constraint. I learned over time as I progressed kind of into my private equity investing days. What I learned was the value that people bring to the equation, which sounds so obvious to all of us, especially here in Silicon Slopes. You're like, it's such a people. Entrepreneurship is all about the people. And at McKinsey, you have this veil where you don't fully appreciate that because that's not allowed into your problem set. And so I really started to appreciate holistically what makes a business work when I moved over to private equity, people being one component of that, but we could go on and on for all the other things that you look at from a private equity perspective.
Yeah. So when you're at Summit Partners, you'd go in for 180 days, right? Which was 2 board meetings?
That's right. Yeah, so I was part of a specific team which we built at Summit to accelerate growth. Okay, so the job of a PE investor is you place the capital, but then you manage it throughout the whole life cycle from opportunity identification, due diligence, acquisition, growth, profitability, whatever your value metrics are that you're solving for through exit. All right, so you're responsible for all of it. But one of my specialties at Summit was coming in exactly as you're saying, right at that for that 180-day window. Would you agree that generally, if success can be predicted by how things start?
Most of the time, yes.
Most of the time. Not all, you got to play the odds game, right? Sometimes, Tom Brady comes back in the fourth quarter, all right? Hopefully we're done with those days. But largely, when you get off to a good start, you're going to do well. And we analyzed all of Summit's investments all the way back to its inception in 1984, and we saw that well over 3/4 of the time that Summit had an outsized return, its first year was a very, very good year. And so we said, what if we invested in those first 180 days and made sure that team gets off, has all the resources, all the focus, all the alignment that it needs in those first 180 days, about 2 board meeting cycles. That should add alpha to our returns, help us outperform our competitors in the private equity space, help our companies outperform their competition, and really exceed expectations. And so that's what I was focused on in my time there.
Yeah. Also very interesting, and it seems like it was probably pretty intense. You're juggling a lot of chainsaws. I think most people probably won't ever have the privilege or whatever's the opposite of that, the punishment of sitting in a board meeting, and you've sat in a ton. What is the function of a board meeting, and is there any funny stories of maybe 1 or 2?
Yeah, so what's the function of a, let's start with what the function is of a board. The board is the corporate governance entity that the management team and ultimately the CEO is responsible to. And that's a healthy thing. There's nothing that I can think of more valuable to a CEO than a board that's working on your behalf, that's supportive, that's helpful, but also holds you accountable, drives you, pushes you. They're not there to be your friend. They're there to push you to be better than you may think that you can be. So, and then of course, from a governance perspective, there are a lot of processes that you just need to do to make sure that you're building a sustainable, valuable business. And boards serve that function in spades. That's their mandate. They've got to do it. Now, in private equity-backed companies, the board is usually composed of a couple of members of the control ownership group, potentially some other investors who may have gotten involved earlier and have retained an ownership stake. And that's great. You've got some institutional knowledge there that you can bring, and private equity firms love that. And then you've got independent board members, meaning they didn't contribute their own capital to the business, although sometimes independent board members get the opportunity to invest. They're there to provide a perspective that's not the investor perspective and it's not the management perspective, but it's I come from running my own businesses, having started my own businesses. Maybe I'm a killer CFO. Maybe I'm a killer product leader or engineering leader. Maybe I'm a killer revenue leader. But those are the types of profiles you want to round out a diverse board of perspectives there. And so you've got this body, and you've got to meet with them. That's critical. Their job is not to be at the company every single day. That'd be a huge mistake. They're about bringing you up to that high level and seeing on a monthly or quarterly cadence, are we meeting our objectives? Are we having the right strategic conversations to get to where we need to go? We talked about the first couple board meetings being especially critical, but they're never, their importance really never fades because you want to make sure that you've got an engaged board and you're on track. So I would say for those of you who have not been in a board meeting, prepare to be a little bit underwhelmed because it's going to look like a lot of the meetings that you're probably in anyway on a day-to-day basis. If you meet with the CEO, I think a great CEO is going to take the way that they proactively work with their board, they're going to take that same methodology to their company. And so if you're meeting the CEO talking about your strategic plan or what you're going to do to win back 2020 or to go after 2021, that's going to feel like its own sort of board meeting. Difference may be that you've got a group of people who aren't with you every day, and so you've got to really do two things in a board meeting. You've got to you got to brag about what you're doing, what's good, what's working. You got to educate your board on these are the things that are working, and you got to say this is what's not working. I need help. We talk at Solutionreach about film review. Back to your college football. Film review, not highlight reel. This is not a highlight reel. No, you don't get, do you look at the highlight reel between Saturdays? No. You review the film, and that's what we do on a quarterly basis. But you also look at what's good. That's part of the film review. So a couple things that have got, look, things can go sideways in the boardroom. There's that, the expectations aren't higher than when you're asked, particularly as a VP or maybe a senior director, and you're asked to come in and walk the board through your particular domain. That's a huge opportunity to shine or not. And I have seen instances where folks, particularly at that kind of senior director, VP level, come in and they're not prepared for that level of intensity, where the level of discourse is really, really high. The expectations and professionalism needs to be really, really high. And I've had some oh crap moments for sure.
So usually the board's the hammer, but I'm always interested in if the entrepreneur or the CEO can be the hammer. So several, like retired executives or retired generals or Secretary of State sit on several boards, right? And various industries and different companies. What happens when they show up and they're unprepared and the only question they can say is, oh, why didn't you do that better?
I'll give private equity, or at least my friends and colleagues at Summit, credit that we never brought in board members just because their name was frequently Googled or just because they're on CNN or Fox. Like that was never a selection item for why we might seek out board level advice. We're always looking for what domain area are we weak and how do we compensate that for that. So it's possible that somewhere buried in the Summit portfolio there's a big name out there, but I've never been involved in those situations, and I wouldn't even sell that short. Like sometimes people have big names because they're good at what they do, and so I was involved with an investment at Summit where we brought in actually the head of retail, who he launched the retail concept for Steve Jobs in the early 2000s and built like the first 50 or 100 Apple stores out. And what an incredible board member, and drawing from that experience. So Yeah, yeah.
I'm sure it happens.
Have you? I mean, I'm sure it happens. I'm sure it happens. And by the way, like, your job as a leader, as a CEO or another executive sitting on the management team, is to educate the board.
Yeah.
Because board members have incredible pattern recognition. They also have incredible context switching capabilities. So they're able to go from one, and then string together patterns. But they are going to forget stuff along the way. And so part of our job is to say, hey, here's the table of contents. And I don't mean like color coding the PowerPoint chart. I mean like here's the reorientation to our business so that you walk in prepared.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been in some board meetings, but I'm mostly going off of like Barbarians at the Gate or Too Big to Fail, where there's politics and like people are drunk and they clearly didn't read the memo.
Yeah, I think it's not like the movies, unfortunately. Yeah.
All right, getting back to Solutionreach. So we've got the fall coming, which is when people get the sniffles and the flu, and this year the COVID. So how are you guys positioned with, again, all of your products and services for the next 6 months?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point. I mean, we've got kids going back to school across the country in various capacities. It is flu season, so just this week, in fact. So a big part of what we do is seasonal. Like, we get our healthcare customers ready to communicate whatever message that specific patient needs at that time. And the past week has been full of getting ready to send out flu season reminders. And what could that look like? It could be information on where to get your shot. It could be information on what is a flu shot, who should get it, what to look out for, when to get it by, all that good stuff. And so that's in full swing as of this week. And there's just going to be a lot of education going on. I don't anticipate that our virus numbers are going to change meaningfully. They may go up. We'll see. I left my crystal ball across the street, but like, this isn't going away. And so the demands on healthcare-related communications are very, very high right now. And so our team's job is just to gear up and be there for our customers, deliver what they need, work around the clock if needed to do so, and then work with new customers who are coming in saying, I was caught flat-footed. I couldn't communicate with 750,000 patients that I have, with one button. I need this right now. Can you help get us going? And that's what we're here to do.
Yeah. You got your work cut out for you. Hopefully there's no more pandemics to add on.
Look, I think what the pandemics taught us, sure, like there's a prevention discussion maybe to be had, but what it's taught us is we need to help our communities, and in our case, most of our customers, they're large or medium-sized, in some cases smaller healthcare organizations. We need to help them just be ready to be there, be responsive. I saw some statistic that was really telling early on in the pandemic, which was, who do you trust about the pandemic and where are you getting your information from? And the who do you trust was my doctor at number one, like down news media, government, all the way down, like CDC, president, like all the way down. But it was doctor, number one. Sure. Where are you getting your information? The news, the president, and then the doctor was down here. And I'm like, we got to flip this, guys. And that kind of rallied our company. We got to flip this over here to where you really are getting information from folks that you trust, that you're telling us you trust your doctor. The doctor should give you the information.
Yeah, makes sense. They just need a way to do it.
Exactly, yeah.
All right. Ordinarily, we'd have some Q&A with the audience, and that's where you'd get a couple of funny questions. So I'll try to think of one or two.
Funny?
You get one business leader, entrepreneur that's still alive, and he or she has to answer with 100% honesty, because you're going to give them a truth serum, 10 questions for you, your company, whatever 10 questions you want to ask. Who's it going to be?
Like asking them to predict the future, or
just 10 questions. It could be.
Oh, I get to just extract the 10.
How should I grow my company?
The 10 questions. Yeah. Definitely Jeff Bezos.
Jeff Bezos.
Yeah, definitely.
And what would be your first question,
What would be my question? What do you do to, talking to your team members, it is so apparent to me that you've been able to instill the fact that it is still the first day in the life of your business, even though you're valued at whatever 2 trillion it is now. How do you do that?
Yeah.
How do you get the day one mentality?
Yeah.
25 years into your business.
Yeah. Yeah. You could probably write a whole book with the answer, and I think some people have. But yeah, that'd be a good one. And he's still young.
Yeah.
He's still got a lot of tread on the tires. Well, cool. All right. Well, it's been nice to kind of bookend a podcast with an in-person event. So thank you so much, Josh. And if people are interested in your products and services or joining your team, where should they go?
Look, we've got a lot of work to do at Solutionreach. We are hiring for a lot of different roles right now, and you should go to solutionreach.com, and you should go to our careers page, learn more about us, talk to your friends, around here. I'm sure you know folks connected to us, and it's day one for us. We're building something new here, built on what we've got, but we're super excited to be a part of the Silicon Slopes community, and thank you, Garrett, for having me again.
Yep, thank you, and appreciate you all for viewing this, and we'll see you all next week.
Hi, I'm Jeff McClain, a wealth advisor with Wells Fargo Private Bank. As the presenting sponsor for today's event, we're grateful for the opportunity to show our commitment to the Silicon Slopes community where we spend so much of our time. My team and I advise so many tech entrepreneurs, executives, founders to help them and their family better predict their financial future. And so we're grateful to be a part of the community, the event, in the area where we spend so much of our time. With the backing and resources of one of the largest wealth management firms in the nation, my team has the experience and resources that you typically only find in a San Francisco, New York, a Palo Alto, but we're right here locally as the largest wealth management firm here in Utah. And so we'd love the opportunity to connect, to start a conversation. I know personally with my background as a tax and estate planning attorney, we advise and guide a lot of families, sometimes well in advance of any business transition, exit, whatever it may be, to help them meet their goals. And so as you watch today's event, as you have the chance to participate, reach out and connect to me on LinkedIn. Let's start a conversation about how we can help advise you and your family. So again, my name is Jeff McClain, MCCLEAN. Try to find me on LinkedIn, Wells Fargo Private Bank, and enjoy today's conversation, today's event, and hope you have a good time. Thanks for participating.